All right. So tell me, what is the worst guest you have encountered in your company?
I'm going to have you go first because I'm ping-ponging back and forth between two of them. Is that okay?
Yeah. So
All right, let's hear it.
mine happened probably in the past 6 months. So this one's fresh. This is a good one.
Does it still burn a little bit? Did it burn at all?
It did not burn at all.
Oh.
So this guy comes in. He's been coming to us. This I don't want to give too many details, but
Smart.
he pre-books, but he doesn't put his reservation in his phone. So he relies on our text messages. So he doesn't show up. So so he gets a text from our system that says, "Hey, you no-showed. Here's what could happen." Doesn't say what is going to happen, but has our no-show fee and all that stuff. So he calls up there. He's like, I never got a text. Like, he's like chewing out our front desk person, who's young. And she's like, okay, well, I can to get him back with that stylist was going to be a while because she was pretty busy. And he's the one that missed. Like, sorry, you. And we looked back and he said he didn't receive a text. Well, we went back and it said it was delivered. So he's like, I want an owner to call me. So my wife and I are going to dinner. My wife says, hey, I got to take this phone call. And I have no idea what's going on at this point. So she's talking. She's like, yeah, yes. Well, okay, well, let me, and like, she cannot get a word in. I'm like, who are you talking to? She's like, I'll tell you in a second. Well, she's like, sir, you need to calm down, which you never want to like telling a person that's not calm to calm down. So
I've learned that.
So she puts him on speakerphone. And I kind of grasp what's going on. And like how he's talking to her, like I'm literally like an inch from like stepping in to be like, all right, I'm taking over now. And that's just not my personality. But I'm like, I'll tell you what I said in a sec. So she said, she called him by his first name. Hey, I've got my husband on the phone. He's like, oh, okay. Is that a threat? Let me talk to him. I was like, holy crap. And I said, sir, I was like, hey, just calm down. Like, and he was like, is that a threat? I said, there's not been a threat. All we've said is these are our literal words. We will bend over backwards to serve you in any way we can. Now that was very gracious. Most salons would have been like, see ya.
Yeah.
And so he goes on and he's like, this is just ridiculous. You're the company. I'm the guest. Take care of and I'm like, okay, like I could have been, and we'll talk about this here in just a bit, but I wanted to do what I could to serve him during this time. So I said, I called him by his first name. I said, can you give me just 20 seconds to speak? And because I couldn't get a sentence in.
Smart.
About 10 seconds in, he's like, I can't hear you. He's like, you're breaking up. You know what? I've had enough of this. Bye, sissy pants, and hangs up on me. I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, this guy just called me sissy pants. And we just started laughing. I mean, we're still kind of like shaking, like, dude, this guy, I'm like, if he goes through life
like that,
God almighty, it was so extreme. So he had another reservation in like 2 weeks. So we had two options. We could call him and be like, hey, you're done. You're not coming back.
Yep.
That's not what we did. I said, you know what? I'm going to be at the front desk. I'm going to welcome him and I'm going to check him out. And I'm going to introduce myself as Sissy Pants. I wasn't going to do that, but I kind of wanted to. He never showed up.
So, again.
Yeah. So, which is good. That's what we wanted. We knew that was going to happen. Why pour gasoline on the fire? Call him back. The fire. That's not very country. Why put gas on the fire? Call him back.
That's not north.
I know. Fire. So we're like, look, let's just, I'll greet him. And then I was like, we should charge him a no-show.
100%. I totally would have.
So most of the staff have me in their phone, my contact as Mr. Sissy Pants. So it's a running joke around the salon.
That's fantastic.
I'm glad to have it. It was definitely an experience.
Make a reminder to change Evan's contact. The one I'm going to go to, the most recent, this was an interesting one. So, this client had seen a number of our team. She's typically rude to them. um, micromanages them a lot. And, from as far as a client goes, like does the things, pre-books the appointment, right? Shows up on time. Huge, like the retail, she probably has the same amount of retail as what we carry in the salon. She's buying 2 to 3 of something every time she's in. So like in that part of it, like checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. But the thing I want to share too is just because someone spends money in your location, don't allow bad behavior, right? So what the situation was, I had noticed we track time. We have a bunch of time benefits in Anagen. And one of them that we track is when there's an appointment change, right? So what the appointment change tells me is we had your slot filled. We had your time filled, but the client at the client's will, for whatever reason, changed their mind and we lost time, right? So I'm seeing this like consistently with her. And the team and I have a conversation. She's like, well, she had requested that I schedule, 3 to 3.5 hours and she can just tell me what she wants that day. I was like, how's that working for her? She's like, it's horrible because she's micromanaging her. And I was like, okay, we got to put a stop to this. So I give her a call, very kind of like, hey, first, I just want to say thanks. Secondly, though, there is something that, as far as a booking policy goes, we're going to need to change that because the golden rule that I use with people is if I had everyone doing this and it caused a problem, we have to change it. Now, if everyone did and it didn't cause a problem, we're good. Smooth sailing, right? And I explained it to her and I had just kind of said in a couple of ways, I was like, can you imagine what that might be like if it was transferred to your job? How would that impact you? She started to get it. And one thing that I've started to do recently, and we have many phones and phone lines. So if it's with an artist, I literally will say, hey, jump on the line. I'd like you to hear what's said because it lets there be this level of authenticity. We don't record it. We don't, distribute it in any other way. But it was interesting because the things that this client started to say were not truthful, right? And the artist got to hear some of these things. And she's like, no, like that person is micromanaging my time so much that she couldn't even take ownership to it. So the reason that I say this one is like by the end of the call, long story short, my teammate has a completely different awareness to what this client is going to say and the lack of authenticity to her word. One, that's an integrity issue. You can imagine how that can show up, right? Now, the other one is I told her, I was like, hey, if we're unable to have you on some sort of a like scheduled plan, which is very easy to do, right? Certain clients, if we know you, we are not highlighting your hair along with your base retouch every 4 weeks. There's no need, right? You haven't grown enough hair to do it. We could charge you, but we're not doing anything. And then actually, probably more to a space might be causing damage, right, from the overlap. So I explained this to her and I just said, I was like, hey, I respect your right as a client. Now, if you'd rather go somewhere that's willing to just, book extra time for you and just allow you to choose on that day, I encourage you to find that place. But if you continue with us, I'm going to need you to respect our artist's time, number one. And secondly, like stick to the schedule, right? If we do things for you and we schedule these things, it's their time, right? And it was beautiful. And I just followed up with this artist, ironically last week, because it's been about 5 weeks since this happened. And she's like, yeah, she gets it now. And sometimes, so like in that situation, I thought about, another thing, man, you've given me, you and Aaron have given me such a great amount of leadership by the close relationship that we have between our brands. But I thought about it right away. I was like, hey, radical candor, and I'm going to seek to win the relationship. I'm going to let her know that I appreciate her business, right? I'm going to show up for my teammate because they're getting, it might not abused is a hard word, but like micromanaging is kind of abusing, right? But yeah, so that's the look to it. So long story short, just because someone spends money in your company, if the way that they're behaving, if that would cause problems, that's something I think as a leader that you need to take on head on. Yeah.
One thing I forgot to add in is when this guy was talking to me, I just responded. I said, he was like, oh, I want to talk to the owner. And we're like, well, we're both the owners. And I said, sir, I don't talk to my wife the way that you are. And I'm not going to let another man talk to my wife that way.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you come after my family, like you'll see me be like, hey, look, I don't talk to them that way. I'm not going to let someone else talk to them that way.
Absolutely.
So let's, I know that was a pretty lengthy intro. Let's go ahead and jump into how to handle an upset guest and break these down. All right. So one thing that you said that if we could like hang it as a banner at front desk that like no one else could see is win the relationship.
Yeah.
When I see so many people in Google reviews, I see so many people that talk and they're wanting to win the argument and lose the relationship.
Yeah.
Now, first off, you got to swallow your ego, right?
Yep. Yep.
You got to swallow your ego because that's the thing it gets
Tripped
in the
up.
way. Because this guy I was talking to, I could be like, bro, look, it's not my fault you missed it. You should put it on your calendar. I know for a fact you don't have it on account. And I know it delivered in the text message.
Right.
And I could just beat him up, but what's he's going to get on the defensive side, right?
Yep. He's going to get offended and then be defensive.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's all people skills.
Yep.
It's all people skills. You got to know how to navigate people. And I always want them to feel like they won.
It's important.
I want them to know what's like in your situation. You were very clear. You had radical candor.
Yep.
But, I don't know the whole, I know you went through it, but like, if she feels like she won, like if she feels like she's like, you know what? Yeah, I feel like they're letting me keep coming here. We had a guest that she would get her hair done. Well, she would talk about how she couldn't afford anything. She'd come in and get her hair done. 3 days later, be like, hey, it's this color. I want to come back in. So it's just, it happens all the time.
Yep.
So the stylist comes in talking about it. I was like, she just wants to come hang out here.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have the money. So like she wants to come and spend more time. So I called her and I was just like, hey, we love having you in. I've noticed that the past 4 times you come in, you've come back in for a redo. And it seems like we're not hitting the mark.
Yep.
So what I need you to do next time is like, I need you to be 100% in love with your hair because when you leave, it makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
Now I understand things happen.
Yep.
But like 4 times in a row, like something is off.
Right.
And like, I want to make sure, is it our color? Is it our color brand that we're using? Is it the products that you're using? Like I'm trying to break it down.
Is it the consultation that we're missing?
So, but she was like, are you going to fire me as a client? And I was like, not yet. No.
Yeah.
No, I was like, no, we love having you. So she knew it was clear, but I felt like she won because she's like, oh, they're still letting me come back.
Yeah. I like that one. And I think on the idea of winning the relationship, I think the next one, this is a Covey one. We might've said this before. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I think, man, in so many of these situations, I think people genuinely just want you to hear their perspective. It's not that their ego. Sometimes I don't know that they necessarily need to be right. I had one person recently that I had gotten on a phone call with, and she just said, I was like, hey, do you feel heard and in this issue? And she said, I do. I was like, okay. Is there anything that I need to do to make that right with you? She's like, you just did. I was like, okay.
Sometimes they just want somebody to listen to them.
Yeah. And I tell this to my team, like, it is okay that you make mistakes in this company. Let's try not to get sued, right? But on that though, if we make a mistake, let's try and figure out how it happened, why it happened, and then what we can do to prevent it in the future, because then the mistake actually taught us something. And in that place of it, that's the best situation. I just used that example with one of our team, and there was miscommunication. Young client that we had, she wasn't clear about what she wanted specifically. She said a trending word, a trending service, and it turned out that was exactly what she wanted. The great thing was, in the review of it, I was like, hey, so instead of us justifying because you're so great and this artist is great at what she does, I was like, instead of justifying how great you are at the consultation, why this was the client's fault, what would it look like if we taught them like, oh, this is actually a thing that would be okay to have a conversation. So when you ask for a trendy service, you seem like you're all on for that trend. Now, you might have never worn that before, so there could be some more questions that we have to ask. So again, in that one, it was like, one, check the ego back. It continues the conversation, and it helped us figure out exactly the point of miscommunication. And the exact point of miscommunication was the picture that she showed was not exactly what she wanted. Her expectation was that it was going to be a little bit different, but you just literally gave us a visual example of what you wanted, right? Okay. What's another kind of principle for you when you're jumping into these?
Well, Ruthie, who works in our company, she had a guest that came in. I guess principle is ask people, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
Yep.
So Ruthie came in, she had a situation. She told me all about the situation, and Ruthie did everything that the guest communicated, in her mind. So she was kind of like, hey, how should I handle this? I said, well, how do you think you should handle it? And she was like, well, I'm thinking X, Y, and Z. I said, all right, take that. Let's, put it in Chat GPT and get a response.
Wild.
So she, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, comes back in the office, knocks on the door. I don't know why they knock on the door. I appreciate it, but I'm like, just come on in. And she comes in and she's like, all right, I texted you the response. I was like, great. So I took the response. It was good to send, but I was like, how can we step it up?
Yeah.
So I took it, threw it back in Chat GPT. I said, make this less AI, more personal, and make it more empathetic.
Yep.
And it was like, boom. So
Yep.
I read it out loud. She's like, that's great. I said, all right, Ruthie, do you think this would be better to text her or to call her? She said to call her.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she would have said to text her. I'm like, okay, you think, like, I would ask more questions to get Ruthie to think to call her.
Yep.
But Ruthie is like wicked smart. So
very relational too.
So she,
and a 3, by the way.
Yeah. She called and there was just a communication gap. And, you know, when there's communication gap in everything, you're going to fill it with suspicion or trust. And as long as we keep filling that with trust and assuming the best in people, that's where life just gets much easier.
Yep.
When you just assume the best. So she finally came in. It wasn't like they were like, you know, dancing afterwards and taking pictures and be like, this is my favorite guest ever. But, you know, she got to the point where she was like, I felt like I served this guest well. And there were some communication things in there that I didn't know were, and that is what you alluded to earlier, is there's a lot of context that we don't know to seek to understand.
So much.
There's so much context.
So much.
Where I think, you know, just being in a relationship with Aaron for, I mean, we've been married for, I shouldn't even say this, been married since 2009. My math is not good. Look at you're
15
like,
years, brother, depending on when it was.
So there's things that happen early on in the relationship, and I didn't have full context. I didn't have the full picture.
Yeah.
Now, I guess as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, she'll make a decision in the company. I'm like, well, before I'd been like, what is she doing? That's not the smart. And now I'm like, okay, fill me in.
Be curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, asking questions, seek to understand.
Yes. And then I think that this is a rare thing done today. Take radical ownership where you can.
Oh,
radical ownership and apologize. And this is the way I look at any of these reviews. I tell the person, I'm like, hey, clearly this was something bad enough to the point that we are talking. And I promise you that I'm not letting this conversation die right here. I'm going to take this back to the person. That is my job. Right. And it's going to go back to the person. We're going to have a conversation about it.
We're going to be better because of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I say, I'm like, hey, I know that these calls aren't easy, and I want to thank you. This is how we get better.
Yeah.
We are striving for a 5-star
What other
experience.
company is doing that?
Well,
Zero.
It's unscalable. Well, and I think that, so the other part is, I've heard so many times people like, they'll get offensive about, because it's an insult to the brand. And and if they're the owner of the brand, then it's an insult to them, or it's an insult to the employee. All those things might be true, but if we go back to our points earlier, 1, win the relationship. 2, seek to understand, right? Why are they making the call? What can we pull from it? What can we take ownership to? In every single bad situation, it rarely is a situation that it's 100% one person's fault, 0% on the other person's side, right? So if it's with a client, normally it's going to be, there's going to be a communication part that likely is going to fall on the client. If we can get to that part and say, oh gosh, you know what? I think I identified where the miscommunication was. These would have been a couple great follow-up clarifying questions we could have asked. I'm going to take this back to this person. We'll have a conversation about it. Guess what? You've just served us. Thank you so much. And then the last piece, and I don't know that you have to go there every time. I like going there, is after you've taken radical ownership, is there anything from your, in your expectation of making this right? Are you expecting anything else from us?
Yeah. I love it because that's just great customer service. Nobody is doing that.
Yeah, roast me, and then he asked me if I wanted a refund. What a jerk, right? Like, no, I'm just making sure.
I want to make sure that when they get off the call, they might not come back to us. That's fine, not everybody. But I want them to be like, you know what? At Silver Salon, Angela, I didn't get exactly what I want, but God, those are the nicest people.
That's it.
And if you go look at Silver Salon reviews,
yep.
Go look at the 1 stars. We have a few of them, and they're great. But they'll more than likely say, "Hey, these are the nicest people."
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'll take that all day.
100%.
Like if you're getting a bad review and they're like, they were a jerk, they were rude. Now there was one that it's a long review. You know those?
Yep.
And
they didn't use AI.
They said that my wife was disgusting. She was rude. I was like, what?
Never a day in her life. Yeah, never a day in her life.
Ever. So that was a good one. That's a good way to end it. This is a long one.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening to the Refine Network podcast. If you need anything, reach out to us at hello@the Refine Network. Y'all have a great one.
Win the relationship. Boom.